Hi, folks. Grego here, and welcome to another Time Scales interview. Today, I have a really fun one. I love doing these right here. This is with someone who shares the enjoyment of a particular science fiction drama that we all love. Right here is none other than Eliza. Hi there.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being on. Now, for those of you that don't know, here's a little backstory, and this is really simple. I ran into Eliza on social media. That's it. End of story. We have never met,
No, this is the first time
but
we've had a conversation.
right. So let's get right to the point then. Have you ever heard of that quirky little science fiction drama thing called Doctor Who?
I absolutely have. It's the single probably most important thing in my life. Um,
Nice.
since I got into it, my obsession's just grown. Um, I've got quite an obsessive personality. If I like something, I really like it. I don't think I've ever been as obsessed with anything as I have with Doctor Who, though. Like, it's just completely consumed my life. And like, when I look back at important moments in my life, it's always like I always remember when it was because I remember who the doctor was at that point or whatever. There's always some Doctor Who connection somewhere.
Very, very relatable. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. And I see the program as eras. So
Yeah,
if you look back and think of something that happened in life, then I too will think in the back of my mind, okay, yeah, that was when David Tennant was the doctor. And
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
interesting. Yeah, it's interesting how we can gauge the passage of time by who the doctor was. So, where did you start? How did this happen? Did somebody talk you into watching it, or did you just find it and wonder what is this?
Kind of like it's kind of popped up in my life occasionally, and I never really bothered with it. Because the thing is, I'm not really a sci-fi fan in general. My genre is
Mhm.
horror. Like I love horror. So Doctor Who never really cropped up that much. But I remember catching a little bit of the Sunmakers on UK Gold, which is like a doesn't exist anymore, but it was a UK show that kind of repeated all the old comedies and all the old classic British shows
Mhm.
and things like that. And I remember sort of thinking, oh, this is quite good. I was at my grandma's house and my uncle Peter sort of saw me watching it and he was like, oh, I've got some Doctor Who videos. Do you want to watch them? Like, I can bring
Oh.
them down next weekend when you're down again and you can watch them. And I said, yeah, because I was very polite, but I wasn't that bothered. But he lent me the box set and it was the Dalek video set with all the Dalek stories. So I watched them sort of in order. I started with Genesis of the Daleks because I thought that was a good place to start 'cause it's where they all started.
Mhm.
Not really knowing what to expect, and I think within 3 minutes I was hooked like completely. I was completely sold, and I was still young enough. This was about 2002, so I was still young enough to be completely immersed in the fiction of the show. So I wasn't thinking about, oh, that actor's made a funny choice there, or that set's a bit ropey, or that monster looks a bit rubbish. I was completely immersed in the story. It terrified me. I watched all 6 episodes in one go, and from then on, like I knew that Doctor Who was going to be quite important in my life. But
Mhm.
I wouldn't have said that I was a fan at that point. I was just somebody who enjoyed it. Um, but then a couple of weeks later, a different uncle on my mother's side this time, he found out that I liked Doctor Who, and he was a fan, and he had loads of old videos and Target novels it was getting rid of. Because at this point, I had no merchandise. I was just like, oh yeah, Doctor Who's quite good. I quite enjoy that. He came over one day with a bin liner full of books and videos, like of all the classic Target novels, and that's when I started to become a fan because you're not really a fan until you start collecting and immersing yourself in all the media,
Right.
watching all the old videos. It was all the classic Tom Baker, John Pertwee era. So I was sort of binge watching them. I was reading all the Target novels, and that's when my life changed and never been the same since.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I love when somebody says the classic Tom Baker, John Pertwee era. That is right. When I started watching, it was back in, I would say, the late 70s. Now, we had it, you mentioned UK Gold, and I guess that gives it away. You're in the UK, aren't you?
That's it.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I had heard of UK Gold, but we had what was called PBS, the Public Broadcasting
Oh
Service.
yes, Yeah.
Yeah, and the first episode I ever saw was The Horror of Fang Rock with Tom Baker. And here's the thing, being American, I couldn't understand the accents. So when I saw this, I didn't know what anybody was saying for the most part, but it was still fascinating. Now, with you being British and starting watching on UK Gold and then with these box sets, did you pretty much comprehend what was going on from the very get-go?
Kind of. I mean, I can't really remember what my thought processes were. I knew that there were different doctors. I didn't know how
Mhm.
or why. I just knew that there were different actors playing the doctor at different points. I
Interesting.
kind of got it on a episode to episode basis because I think the sort of John Pertwee, Tom Baker era, you didn't really need to know a lot about continuity. And obviously, starting with the Genesis of the Daleks, I didn't know how the Doctor and Sarah and Harry arrived where they were because I'd not seen the Ark in Space or Sontaran Experiment, so I didn't understand that bit. But I got the stories. It was actually the 10th Planet novel, the Target novel, that where I found out what regeneration was. Because, like I say, I
Ah,
knew that there were different Doctors, but I didn't know why. And obviously, on the Target novel, the ones that had the photo of the Doctor on the back, it'd say like this cover depicts the first Doctor who was played by William Hartnell, so and so. And then underneath it says who regenerated after his body got worn out during a fight with the Cybermen and he changed his body. And I remember reading that and thinking, oh my God. So, like, he physically changes. And in my head, I had all these visual
wow.
images of like the Doctor peeling his skin away and another Doctor coming out. And like, it just blew my mind. And I kind of picked things up like that because it was not really, the internet wasn't really a thing when I got into Doctor Who. So it was like reading the magazines and all the collecting all the books and things, the non-fiction books and things like that, and just sort of picking up bits and bobs where I could and sort of piecing it all together in my head. So it was, like, I worked hard for it. I felt like I was kind of studying a little bit and sort of
Right,
like learning
right.
about this show. It was amazing.
Wow, you have a very interesting story. You entered at a very different time than what I'm used to actually hearing of other fans because normally, for the most part, you'll have the people that started watching the original back in the 70s or even in the 60s. And
Yeah.
then you will have what I call the newer generation of fans that started watching with New Who that was broadcast in 2005. But you actually got interested in Doctor Who after the original run ended in 1989, and then after the 1996 American Canadian film, and then before it was even announced that it was coming back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. So,
that's very interesting. So,
yeah.
l- are you familiar with the they used to call it the famine years here, at least in California, and British people call it the wilderness years, where
Yeah,
there
the
was
wilderness
no
years.
Doctor Who. You're familiar with that?
I am, yes. I think Paul Cornell called it theme park years, didn't he? Because he felt that sort of
So
Doctor Who
there's
at
a
that
different
point
one.
had
Yeah.
sort of become really interesting with all the new adventures and things, and like it's kind of opened up even more to a point. But yeah, I was familiar with that, and not at the time. Like it wasn't until sort of retrospectively that I was like, oh, I grew up in sort of the back end of the wilderness years. Like it didn't really occur to me. It was
Yeah.
just, to me it was all new, so I didn't know quite how much. I didn't really know when it had finished and things like that until a bit later on, just before by the time the series came back, I was a fully fledged fan. Like I knew as much as you possibly could, but hobbling along, like I was just picking up little bits here and there. Um, I didn't really know much about it, so to me it felt huge already before the fact that there was even another series coming that would make it even bigger.
Wow. Okay. So did you watch the 96 movie by any chance?
I don't have any recollection of it. I do have a vague
Okay.
memory of it being around, but it just wasn't on my radar. I'd
Okay.
imagine my mum might have watched it, but she never really mentioned it to me, and I don't really remember watching it at the time. I would have only
Okay.
been about 6 or 7. And at that point, everything I was obsessed with things like Batman and sort of Tim Burton films and things like that. So it wouldn't have really come up on my radar. And it's funny because I don't
Okay.
think if I'd not have got into Doctor Who when I did, I don't think I would have been that interested in the 2005 series. Because, like I say, I'm not really a sci-fi fan, and I don't know
Wow.
if it would have been something I'd have bothered with. I think I just got into it at exactly the right time, just at the right moment, like a crucial point.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it. And you kind of you skipped a little bit of the pain of being a fan who could for over a decade think, oh well,
Yeah,
Doctor Who is never coming back. Because I remember that feeling, saving all of my videotapes that I had recorded
oh,
off of PBS, and then throughout the 90s, thinking, okay, well, this is just never coming back. And then eventually I junked all of my tapes. I threw them away because I had completely lost interest because it was gone. And then
yeah.
all of a sudden it was announced that it was coming back. And of course, we had already had that film in the US in 96, and I was like, it's really, is it really coming back? I was in disbelief because of how long it had been gone. And
Yeah, there's
and
been a
and
lot of
you,
false starts as well, hadn't there? Like lots of
yeah,
rumours,
that's
like in the early
right.
'90s as well, like Doctor Who's coming back as a film, this, that, and the other. It never
Right.
happened.
I forgot about that. There there were a whole bunch of false starts. So it was kind of hard to believe. Now, when Rose finally came on, I was one of the people that couldn't wait. All right, somebody at CBC Canada leaked that pilot episode onto the internet, something called a file sharing network, which I didn't know how to use it. But my friend told me, hey, you remember that Doctor Who thing that you always loved? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, do you know there's an episode on the internet right now? And I'm like, what? And I remember seeing Rose, and I'm like, do you know how to download that? So we
Yeah.
we actually watched it before it hit the television, and I'll tell you what,
Oh, wow.
I will admit I was in tears just a little bit, okay? And it was because I couldn't believe that not only Doctor Who was back, but that it actually was real Doctor Who. So I'm
Yeah.
wondering, when you saw Rose, how did you feel about that?
Honestly, I've been more excited since with like all the anniversary episodes and things. But at that point in my life,
Right?
I don't recall being any more excited up to that point. It was incredible. I remember, I know the teaser trailer aired around the new year, but then they obviously had the
Yeah.
longer trailer, which was specially shot. And everybody was sort of saying, "Oh, it's going to air after this episode of Holby City on BBC One, I think it was, or EastEnders." And I had a tape recorder because the tape recorders were still a thing. And I remember waiting. I watched this episode of EastEnders, and I waited for the trailer, and I recorded it. And I must have watched that trailer a million times. I can still recite
Yeah.
it now from memory.
Yeah.
And on the day that it actually came back, we were on holiday in a place called Skegness. Any UK viewers will know what Skegness is. It's just like a little holiday place. And the whole day I was just like so excited, like just to get back to the caravan to watch it. And I think there was a football match on in the day, and I was just like really stressed out because it's like, oh, Doctor Who's on in a few hours. We need to get back. And I remember a moment when they played the trailer again on the big screen in the pub where everybody was watching the football, and just to see everybody just turn around and look at the screen and go quiet for a few seconds, just 'cause we were all so excited. It was amazing. But then when the episode actually aired, it was just incredible because it's like the first time I'd ever seen new Doctor Who, and it was just it was an incredible experience. There was just like this show that was I kind of felt it was mine because I didn't know any other Doctor Who fans,
Oh
and
yeah.
at the time I was
Yeah.
at school, nobody knew what it was, and it was kind of my show. And then all of a sudden,
Right.
everybody knows about it, and everybody's talking to me about it, and I made loads of new friends. It's like all of a sudden, like I kind of knew something about something that they didn't, and it was a really interesting time.
Exactly. Yeah, very, very interesting. And you know, I forgot about that trailer. I did the same thing. I recorded that and watched that over and over. And the music, I remember the music about it was something that really gave me hope that this is really going to be good because I didn't want
Yeah,
it to get messed up. You know, after being gone for so long and it was going to be back, it seemed like it had its chance to return. It better be really good. And then it really was. And then of course I did
yeah,
see some other people that had never seen it before that would just start talking about Doctor Who in public, even at the grocery store or at a restaurant. And I'm like, wow, I never thought I'd see the day. And so,
yeah.
so now with you entering Doctor Who fandom or catching the bug before you even had a shelf of books and collectibles, and as you know, all Doctor Who fans, we all have our shelf of stuff.
Oh, good. I've got
um,
several.
right. Um, did you eh, did you ever feel like you had a doctor Because there's this saying, who's your doctor? And, in my case, it would be Tom Baker because he was the first one I ever watched. That's what introduced me to it. But a lot of people will have someone where if you ask another fan, who's your doctor? Boom, they'll immediately have an answer. Do you have a doctor? Do you feel like if I were to ask you, who's your doctor, what would you immediately think?
I think it'd probably be a cross between Tom Baker and Peter Capaldi. It's a bit
Oh,
different for me
wow.
because Tom Baker was my first.
Okay.
He's my favourite. I love him.
Hmm.
But I was kind of watching all the Doctors at once, all the classic Doctors, and I feel like I've got a connection with a lot of them. Like, I went through quite a bad time at school where I was getting bullied. And around that time, I was sort of finding the
Same
Peter
here.
Davison and
I
Colin
had that
Baker
happen too.
episodes. So they were a comfort for me. So I feel a lot of warmth towards them. But in terms of the new series, I mean, I've loved all the Doctors that have come and gone, but the 12th Doctor, Peter Capaldi, was the one that out of the newer ones I really had a strong connection with. Like whenever a Doctor leaves, I'm always sad, but I'm always excited at
Yeah.
who's coming next. It's like I'm sad that you're regenerating, but I'm so excited about who's next. With Peter Capaldi, it's nothing to do with Jodie Whittaker at all. It's just the fact that he was going. I was just so sad. I was distraught. I remember watching his last episode with a glass of wine and just I was inconsolable afterwards. Like I was heartbroken because I just loved him so much.
Yep.
So I feel like of
Yep.
the new series, he's my Doctor, but I think overall, it's always going to be Tom. But I love every single one of them.
Right.
Like I could say nice things about all of them.
Yeah, yeah, same here. I enjoy every single one of them, and I look at them as eras. And
Yeah,
if there is something in Doctor Who that is happening now, which of course we will have new episodes on this year, I believe. I think there's a new series coming.
there
I'll
is.
look at it like, okay, yeah, 10, 20 years from now, that's what people will remember about this. That's kind of the way I see it because of having
Yeah,
watched it so long. And Tom Baker definitely is my doctor as well. I remember thinking of him as this. I thought he was a comedian the first time I watched Doctor Who. I think of him as this googly-eyed, crazy-haired comedian guy because I thought he was telling jokes in the very first time that I ever watched it. But I didn't realize at the time that this actor right here is the god of
yeah,
Doctor Who actors right here when I was watching that. The god, so to speak. But uh, Tom Baker rules. I don't think that
he does.
anybody could say that Tom Baker does not absolutely rock. But yeah, with Peter Capaldi, very interesting. And see, that was the time when we had gone through a couple of doctors since it came back. I guess he was what the fourth Doctor after Rose came back with Christopher
Yeah,
Eccleston, and that
yeah,
seems to be when Doctor Who was at its peak, at least according to my peers, the people around me, the people that I found out started enjoying Doctor Who, and we would talk about it. It seemed like that was kind of at its peak. Um, Now, after that, how did you warm up to the other doctors that followed? Jodie Whittaker and the current doctor, Shuri Gatwa.
Well, Jodie's era is obviously very different to everything that had gone before, and I kind of like the way that they stripped back all the continuity and made it very new. It was I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the second season more. And I enjoyed Flux, but I think it took a little bit of getting used to. I thought Jodie was great. I do prefer the Doctors to be a little bit spikier. Like I like my Doctors to be a bit grumpy and a bit crotchety, and obviously she was very warm and loving. Um, but I didn't. It didn't take me long. It never takes me long to warm to a new Doctor, and I thought she was fantastic from the get go. I really enjoyed David Tennant's return as well. I was a bit skeptical at first. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
why are we going backwards? But actually, I think it worked, and I actually preferred him as the 14th Doctor to the 10th because he was a little bit older and he played it a tiny little bit different. He was a little bit gruffer, and I preferred his outfit as well. I loved his outfit. Um, and I did. I liked him as a 14. And then Shooty, I think, is great. I think he's nailed it. I think he's very different, and I can understand why some people might struggle because he's a very different sort of doctor. But strip away all the flamboyance and everything else, it's the doctor still. And I
Yeah.
thought he gave a
Yeah.
really good performance in his first season. And again, he had me from the get go. And I can't wait to see what he does next. And I'll be honest, I didn't enjoy the Christmas special very much. I thought for me, it just didn't do anything. But he really did hold it together. Like there's always something watchable in a Doctor Who episode, and even if the episode's rubbish, at least you've got the Doctor. Like, there's always going to be
Yeah.
little moments of charm or something that you can take from it,
Yeah. You just made me realize something. And don't tell anybody, but I haven't seen the Christmas episode yet.
Oh, if you're not,
It's yeah,
but you might
and
enjoy
it's
it.
I now I have something to look forward to. I just now realized that I haven't seen it. We were out of town. We we were actually in Japan, so I was
Oh,
not
wow.
thinking about Doctor Who for a couple of weeks. But um, you mentioned that you like the Doctor to be a little bit spiky, like a little grumpiness. So let's go from the most recent eras, Jodie Whittaker, Ncuti Gatwa. Let's go all the way back to 1963 with William Hartnell. Have you gone back and watched the original black and white episodes?
Oh God, yeah, I love the black and white era. William Hartnell's one of
Okay.
my favourite eras. Um, I absolutely adore his stories. The Aztecs is one of my favourite stories of all time. I think it's absolutely
Oh,
wonderful, and
nice.
it's the first time you see the Doctor fall in love. He's got some absolute classics in his era: the Dalek invasion of Earth, the Time Meddler, and lots of great missing stories as well that I'd love to see recovered, like the Dalek Master Plan. But yeah, I love William
Oh,
Hartnell. I
yeah.
love his. I've got so much love for his era, and I love, especially the first TARDIS team with Ian and Barbara and Susan. I think they're fantastic. It's just it's one of the eras I go back to a lot, and I do dip into a lot of Hartnell stories. Like I think there's very few that I struggle with. Even the Web Planet's a big favourite of mine. I just think
Yeah.
it's so weird and unusual, and I think
Yeah, it is.
only sort of Doctor Who could, only Verity Lambert could have pulled that off.
Yeah, no doubt. Verity Lambert. Boy, do we have her to thank. Um, that the the black and white era is something that we can only just enjoy because it'll that can't be done again. To
Yeah,
me, the something about the music, the fact that it could be slow paced and the story could be really long, and there's just a magic to those. And I'm gonna bring it up here. The terrible tragedy that every Doctor Who fan shares. The terrible tragedy of the lost episodes. Do you remember when you found out that there were episodes missing?
I can't remember exactly, but I do remember learning about it.
Hmm.
I think it must have been Doctor Who magazine or something. And just finding out how many there were. Obviously, there's a lot less now. But at the time,
Yeah,
it was very disappointing. But of course, as soon as I learned about them, I was straight on getting the audios and things that existed and things
right,
like that, and making sure I'd got my target novels of the ones that don't exist, just so I'd got something. But I do
right.
remember in 2013 when Enemy of the World and the Web of Fear got found, and
Yeah,
just the absolute joy of that, and the fact that Enemy of the World had just turned out to be such a classic story, such a brilliant story that had for so long sort of languished in the sort of ones that people don't really talk about, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my god, this is up there as one of the best. So
yes.
that was a fantastic time.
Yeah, yeah, I remember it being hard to believe. I also remember when the lion was found and somebody put it on eBay.
What
That this was
that was the
like I think
90s,
around
wasn't it?
it was yeah, long time ago.
99,
I think it was
wasn't
like
it?
98 or 99
Yeah.
and people thought it was a hoax. And then of course I remember the most recent haul in 2013 and I remember seeing that on the news. I'm like, "What? That this better not be a joke again." Because there had been some fans that I guess in good-hearted humor or hope that had announced that episodes had been found so many times that it was just
Yeah.
ridiculous. And I remember reading that and I thought, wow, this sounds legit. This sounds like they really did. And I was like, what do I do? I better take a screenshot of this. And I'm like, "No, I don't need a screenshot. I'm reading it." I could not believe that they had actually found more of them again. And I hope that happens again.
Oh, me
It's,
too.
oh my God. It's, it seems as if the possibilities of where these episodes could still exist have really been investigated. And hopefully there's some of them in some private collections out there somewhere. I guess we
Fingers
can hold on
crossed.
to hope, keep our fingers crossed, exactly, that more of them will come up. So, Okay, well,
Yeah,
Eliza, we're running on almost a half an hour here, and I told you I think
oh,
this will be
yes,
20 minutes. So, can I ask you just a couple more here before we wrap up?
absolutely. Yeah, of course you
Okay,
can.
okay.
Yeah,
Now you've mentioned Target, and I think it's very interesting to see a fan that came into Doctor Who around 2002 because I don't recall ever hearing that. And usually it's someone that's been watching since the 70s or the 80s or 90s. Then you'll see people that started watching with the film in America, and then people that have started watching New Who and may not have ever seen the original series. Now, you mentioned your Target books, and on social media, you post some great pictures. That's what got
thank you.
my attention because if you want to get a Doctor Who fan's attention, post some Target book covers. My God,
Yeah,
we can't get enough of them. And I noticed that you were reading these. And in fact, which one was that? Times Champion
oh yeah,
is right, right with Chris McKeon, who is the author. I actually interviewed Chris right here on this channel. So
oh cool.
it, it's very interesting that you like Doctor Who from the novel form, but I'm wondering, do you enjoy other formats such as comics by any chance, where there's a whole
I do.
bunch of you do Doctor Who
Yeah,
comics
I
too?
do read the comics. I'm not as much of a fan of the comics as I am the novels. But I do
Right,
read them. I've got lots of the comic collections and things like that. So I do enjoy them, but I do prefer the novels. I've got sort of most of the new adventures and all the missing adventures and things, and I prefer to
right.
sort of indulge in them because it's just a bit meatier. But there are some great comics out there, and I do dip into them quite often as well.
Okay. Um, Now what about fan art? I'm sure that you have seen that online on
Oh yeah,
social media. Fan art is such a absolutely wonderful thing. It seems like almost every day somebody drops some stunning, beautiful new thing. Uh,
yeah.
do you, so you're enjoying the fan art aspect as well?
Oh, 100%. I mean, one of my favourite Doctor Who artists is called Caroline Edwards. I don't know if you've
Hmm.
heard of her. Um, I found her online when I was first getting into Doctor Who. I assumed she was some American person. I had no idea she was in the UK. And I just
Hmm.
loved her artwork. And then the first big Doctor Who convention I ever went to, I met her. I've become friends with her since. And I think her art's just gorgeous because she captures beautifully the characters, the aliens, the settings, but she also creates her own sort of images as well around it. She doesn't just copy sort of classic photos, for instance. She'll create her own scenes
Hmm.
and things like that. And I've got lots of art from her that I've been lucky enough to get signed by some of the actors, and she's fantastic. And I think anybody who does Doctor Who art's amazing. I can't draw myself. I'm more of a writer. I wish I could draw. I'd love to be able to, but I can't. So honestly,
Right.
my hat goes off to anybody who can do that. He's so talented.
Yeah. And you said that her name is Caroline Edwards?
Yeah,
Okay, we need to put a link to Caroline's contact or socials or website or something. I would really
yeah.
like to take a look at her art. Now, um,
She's on Facebook. Caroline. It's Caroline with a Y rather than an IE. It's Lyn. So she's on.
okay,
She's definitely on Facebook. I'm not sure about Twitter, but she's definitely on Facebook.
okay, I'll go ahead and find her on there and clarify the link with you, and then we'll put it here
Yeah,
below. So people that are
that's
watching
perfect.
this, and if you're interested in what Eliza just said about Caroline Edwards as a Doctor Who fan art creator, go ahead and click that link below and take a look yourself. So, Eliza, you just answered my next question. I was going to ask you to go to conventions, and you just said that one of the big conventions I went to. So I guess you do that too.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. This is one of the ways that Doctor Who's changed my life. I've made so many friends through it and had so many great experiences. I've got three coming up this year. I'm three Doctor Who conventions.
Oh, only
I
three.
just think they're great. Yeah, I've got one called Valiant, which is and one called Hooverville, both single days, and then there's Utopia, which is a 4-day event. And I always come away from them making new friends. And it's always a great experience. We've had some
Yeah.
really good times in the past. They're just such a blast. It's not just about Doctor Who; it's just about meeting people. And at the weekend ones, it's always a party as well. I've had many a raucous evening, sort of in the bar. It's lots of fun.
That's awesome. I've had this misconception that may not be a misconception. I always say that you British people have so much fun because it seems like you're having a Doctor Who convention every weekend. I mean, look, if if you take a look at some of the actors, I mean, take a look at Sophie Aldred, for example. Sophie Aldred is she's awesome, okay, and she's a very kind professional, and it seems like she's always going to something. And
Oh
Katie
yeah,
Manning,
all over the
uh,
world. Yeah, all over there's so many that
Glo-
do loads, and I understand sometimes like people overseas, like it's a bit more difficult because they might not travel over there as much. But over in the UK, like there's like you say, there are literally conventions every week. Like there was one today that I didn't even know about until today. There was
see,
one last week celebrating John Nathan Turner that I had no idea about. They're all over the place all the time.
okay. I don't even know what else to ask you at this point. We have so much in common, and it is
Oh,
any day that you meet another Doctor Who fan is an awesome day. So here
absolutely, absolutely agree.
let me ask you something that is not Doctor Who related because we could go on and on. In fact, the program Spill the Geek Tea, as I was mentioning to you right here before we started recording, is mostly Doctor Who fans, and we're talking about stuff that's not related to Doctor Who, but every once in a while it comes up. So, um, aside from Doctor Who and all of the fun, all of the fantasy from 1963 all the way to the present, the comic books, the novels, the shelves of collections, the conventions and meeting friends, and all of that, do you have any other hobbies?
Oh, I've got loads. Like I said,
Oh,
I'm a bit of a
really?
writer. I'm a bit of a
Okay.
writer, so I've had a few little bits published here and there. I love my horror films, so I've got a few horror conventions coming up. I'm a metalhead. I love heavy metal music, so I'm always going
I
to gigs and
suspected that.
things. Yeah, so I've got quite a few coming up
Yeah.
this year. I like going to the cinema. I've got a Cineworld card, so I'm often, just nipping off to the cinema to see what's out. I'm an avid reader in general. Like I'm always reading, always got my nose in a book. Yeah, I like to keep myself busy. I was a radio presenter until recently, but I gave that up because I've been doing it for 12 years, and with work and everything else, it was just quite tiresome. But that was a fun hobby. I've done a bit of everything from jujitsu, sword fighting. I just, I'll try anything
Wow.
once.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, I did a little bit of the radio thing myself. So, um,
Oh, lovely.
we need to keep in touch. So, keep in
Oh,
touch on socials, and then also the Spill the Geek Tea channel. I believe you might be able to be on for a recording soon. And I think that we're going to be
absolutely.
talking about pizza. And you talk about a fun thing. That right there, Spill the Geek Tea was started by a guy that goes by the handle Reverend Amagon, and he also goes by Tasty Cake. Well, his name's Tom, and he started his own channel where he would start doing reviews of strange foods. But then I recognized him. I'm like, wait a second, this isn't some strange food guy. That's a Doctor Who fan because I had seen him on another show. Okay, so I started watching his show, and then he started Spill the Geek Tea, and then invited me on. And as co-hosts, we can invite other guests. And I thought it would be something fun for you to hang out on. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
now people know a little bit more. I suspected the thing about being a metalhead. Same here. I've got a story to tell
Yeah.
you about ZZ Top.
Oh,
Absolutely
nice.
crazy story. Yeah. So stick around and I'll tell you that story. But um, yeah, it's awesome to meet another Doctor Who fan. And so was there anything today that I should have asked but I didn't?
Not really. Yeah, you've asked what you wanted to ask. You've kind of covered the basic ground, I think. Yeah, you've covered
Yeah.
sort of my origins as a Doctor Who fan and sort of my big obsessions with it.
Okay, well then let me ask you one last one. Um, How excited are you about Doctor Who today? As in the new episodes that we have coming up. Are you really looking forward to this?
I'm very excited. Yeah, I'm always excited for a new series. Like it's always just feel like a child again. I like the fact that we don't know too much about what's coming, but I'm sure when the next trailer comes and they start leaking little bits and bobs, we'll find out more. Keeping my fingers crossed for the Daleks because I do think Shooty needs a good Dalek story. But beyond that,
Yeah,
I'm so excited.
yes. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I hope Shooty gets a Dalek story. There was one thing I forgot. Audios. Do you listen to Big Finish audio adventures by any chance?
I do, yes. I'm very.
Yeah,
I
me
don't
too.
listen really to the newer ones. I'm just so
Hmm.
far behind, and obviously they're quite expensive to keep on top of. But I've got a lot of the older ones, and I do enjoy them. You know, there's certain ones that really stick out for me, like the Master and Davros, those two single stories. I love the Unbound Adventures, and things like that. So I do listen to them. I'm just not what you'd call a regular listener. It's very
Okay.
hard to keep on top of everything.
Yeah, it is. In fact, you probably have one of these also. I have what's called a to read pile, which also includes audio CDs. And my
Yeah, I've
my
got a very
to
big
read
to read
pile, it's
pile.
it's yeah, it's way too big and it's getting larger. So
Yeah.
so Eliza, it was really nice to meet you. And
Oh, you too.
thanks for thanks for saying yeah. When I reached out to you on social media, that's a shot in the dark. You never even know if somebody's going to reply to you or not. It's like, who is this crazy guy that wants to interview me? But it's always nice when someone says yeah, and it made my day, and today I have been so much looking forward to seeing you on the screen because I had some
Me
questions
too.
to ask, and we've got them covered. So, where do you like to be found on social media? Obviously, you're prevalent on social media. That's where I found you.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. I don't know what my handle is. I think if you just do you
Okay.
just type in I think I'm Eliza Who or Eliza Hemming. I don't know what the actual what you have to type in
I
to find me.
I
But if you
remember
can get
Eliza who. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So,
if you just type
okay,
that in, it should come up. I'm quite prominent on Instagram as well. I'm on Instagram a lot. So Instagram is at underscore Jezebel of Decibels, which was my old radio nickname, but I just didn't want to
okay,
change it 'cause just thought I'll leave it as it is. So
okay.
Jez
Cool.
underscore Jezebel of Decibels.
Okay, and folks, both of those links are going to be down below. So if you have enjoyed Eliza's story here, I've totally enjoyed meeting another Doctor Who fan. That's great.
It's been
Go
lovely.
down to her socials, click on her socials, follow her, and keep in touch. So Eliza, really super nice to meet you today. This has been awesome, and I will see you around. Stick around. Don't hang up yet because I've got a quick
Okay,
story to tell you here, but I'm going to go ahead
that's
and
good.
end this. So, anyone who's enjoyed this, check out Eliza online. A great, fun Doctor Who fan right there. Peace
I
out
don't
from
bite.
San
Say hello.
Francisco. Yeah, say hello. She doesn't bite. All right. Eliza, really nice to meet you.
Yes, you too, Gregor. Thank you so
Okay.
much for having me.
Okay. Take care.